In this video, I'd like to consider two rappers at two stages of their careers. I'm laughing because this is not really a rap YouTube channel. There's not much consideration of rap music here. I'm not even a rap music fan or aficionado or anything like that. But I do find certain personalities interesting, and I think that the genre of rap can facilitate interesting characters in a way that perhaps other musical forms can't or aren't as inclined to do, because rap seems to be more it comes across as being more from the heart. It comes across as somebody really I hate this phrase, speaking your truth, because that makes it sound like truth is relative. But somebody really speaking passionately and with great vigor. But the thing is, a lot of the time, rap is kind of boring because it's just about money and bitches and being gangsta and like just sort of braggadocio and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes you have more interesting characters in rap, and sometimes you have these characters that kind of break the mold of the scene generally and become something more interesting or more profound. Now, I felt this way. I wasn't a rap music fan, but I really found myself becoming a fan of Eminem very early in his career. We're talking like 1999, 2000, 2001, maybe. I think specifically I would include the if I'm remembering the albums correctly, the Slim Shady LP, the Marshall Mathers LP, and there might have been one other one in there somewhere. But I think it was especially those two. The Slim Shady LP, which had Hi, My Name Is, that was the first, I think his first hit. And the Marshall Mathers LP, which had Will the Real Slim Shady Please Stand Up? And what else? Oh, I Am Whatever You Say I Am, and a couple of other things. Now, what emerged in those albums at that particular time in his career, early on, was somebody who was really who really had this personality that could be rather compelling. He was he was not just somebody going around. I mean, he could pass. He was a white guy, but he wasn't like an uncool white guy. Trying to be black. He could pass, as ghetto or whatever. He didn't come across as awkward. As somebody trying to be somebody that he wasn't, because he actually did grow up in squalor. But he had he had the standard sort of tough guy thing going, but on top of that there was this sort of crazy, amusing, clownish, bombastic sort of figure. This character who could just who could be very, very funny, but funny in a very often in a very off color and definitely politically incorrect sort of way. And yeah, there were, people say that people talk as though woke stuff wasn't really around in the 90s. That's not true. It wasn't called woke back then. It was called political correctness, but it was the same thing. And Eminem was very popular with some, but he was also highly reviled in his early days because people thought he was a misogynist and they thought he was homophobic. Sound familiar? He would have rhymes about, my words are like a dagger with a jagged edge that'll stab you in the head whether you're a fag or a les, a homosex, hermaph, or a transvest, pants or dress, hate fags, the answer's yes, homophobic, now you're just heterophobic. These were his rhymes, and he was not apologetic. He also said things about women, and sometimes it was funny. Sometimes it was there were songs of his that are very kind of juvenile, and like something some 15-year-old would come up with, as far as crazy sexual fantasies and stuff. But some of them, and a lot of them were indeed somewhat rather degrading in their depictions of women. There were others, though, that were much more menacing. There was a dark side and there was an edge to Eminem, especially in a song like Kim. Now, Eminem, Marshall Mathers, was had this kind of dysfunctional relationship with his girlfriend, where they would marry and divorce, and then marry and divorce, and or they would just keep getting back together. I don't know if they got actually married and divorced, or if they were just breaking up and then getting back together. But in any case, they had a daughter together, and Haley Jade, who I know is grown up now and everything. I stopped following Eminem, in the mid-aughts, where he really kind of ceased to be interesting at around that time. But so at the time he had this little girl that he loved, but he had a love-hate thing with Kim, and he had a song about murdering her called Kim, and it's a very difficult song to listen to. It's like, it's not really funny at all, like a lot of the other songs. It's not really leavened by any crazy wacky humor. It's just it's just extremely violent and quite scary, and quite just very extreme, in a lot of ways. Really pushed the boundaries. Imagine imagine having someone murder you explicitly in a song of theirs. I mean, choke you out, and you hear yourself, you hear what's supposed to be your own voice, screaming for mercy, and then you hear yourself being the life being choked out of you. That was what was on that song, and it was about a real person. So there was a lot about the early Eminem that was really controversial, and he was very popular. He really, again, had a large fan base, but he also had a lot of people who hated him and looked down on him, and people who were politically correct, feminists and people who were big on promoting homosexuality and stuff. They hated him. They tended to hate him. There were some exceptions. Elton John supposedly thought he was funny, and that was why he agreed to do a duet with him at the Grammys, I think it was. And you wouldn't necessarily expect that from somebody who's unabashedly homosexual as Elton John was, but he liked Eminem, but a lot of people didn't. A lot of people thought he was a very very bad, set a very bad example, and was very irresponsible, and uh, wanted to censor him, and now, and so that was early Eminem, and then at some point, to me, he just stopped being as interesting, and I just tuned out. I really wasn't. He wasn't doing stuff that really was as. Maybe he was still. I don't know. Maybe he was still interesting. Maybe he was still good, but I didn't. I just didn't. He didn't interest me as much. I fell out of his orbit after, like 2002, 2003. I think the movie that he was in, 8 Mile, which came out in 2003, they kind of marked the end of my fandom. So I thought nobody could top Eminem, as far as just provoking extreme reactions. But now look at what's happened with Ye. Oh my gosh. And this is with Ye, formerly Kanye West, of course. This is late in his career, not late. He's not an old man or anything, but he's getting up there. I think he's in his late 40s, if I'm not mistaken. He's been around for a long, long time. I mean, he's been around, not as long as Eminem has been around, but almost like he I think his first album was in 2004, something like that. And of course he had little things along the way that were controversial. He said George Bush doesn't care about black people in some video about the hurricane. He got off script and made everybody uncomfortable, and then he got up on stage when Taylor Swift won an award and said Beyonce should have won this award. And I to this day I don't know whether that was staged or not, or whether he was actually just doing that. But at one time, Kanye West was hated and loathed by right-wing people, by conservatives. And Taylor Swift was seen as this darling, just like, oh, she's a sweet blonde, white girl. And here's this menacing Negro coming up and saying she shouldn't have won this award and humiliating her. You could just imagine what the way people were feeling. You can imagine how, but it all just what's so humorous is how it all got switched up, and how eventually Taylor Swift became this bane bane of the right. This ratty, overrated feminist singer, who was going on and on about all this annoying stuff, and it's like saying Trump was awful and abortion is great, and just falling in line with all the liberal tropes. And Kanye West went the very opposite way. They crisscrossed each other right around the same time in 2016. And when West first started speaking out about against the Clintons and against the liberal establishment and so forth, and after that became pretty well known as a person on the right. But then and we thought that he was already sort of being provocative then. And he went out and wore the White Lives Matter shirt with Candace Owens, and he said some things that were that went against BLM and what have you. But then, then he went ham. He went ham on the Jews. In a couple of years ago, I think it was 2022, 3 years ago, that first broke, where he went on DEFCON 3. He tweeted that he was going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people, and he became very upset with how he was, the things that were the way he was being treated by people in the industry, and he's pointed out how many of them were of a certain ethnicity, and he got really really edgy, um and and now in 2024, 2025, with his latest stuff, he's still out there recording songs. People act like, oh, he's just done for, he's washed up, he's finished. He's still recording, he's still making music, and the people who listen to it are saying, I even including people who don't like the turn that he's taken. A lot of them are saying, shoot, this is really good. I hate to admit it, but this is really good. I can't tell you how many times I've seen those kinds of comments from people. And I recently wrote an article on Substack, which I linked to on on YouTube, on my main YouTube channel, Andy Nowicki, and it's about his latest song, Heil Hitler. And yes, the title of the song is Heil Hitler, and it's wild if you've heard it. Of course it's getting banned a lot of places, but you can still see it on X, you can still see it on Rumble. They're going to have a hard time keeping this song out of people's rotations, because Ye is still, Ye is a famous rapper, like somebody who's extremely rich and influential and successful, and has had a lot of hits. And so now he's written a song called Heil Hitler, which goes way beyond anything that Eminem ever did. The things that Ye, who's a black guy, of course, the things that Ye is doing and saying, and the sort of stances that he's taking now, the kind of provocateur that he's being, and the thorn in the side to the wokies that he is. Of course, they pretend that he's. They pretend that oh, he's just he's just trying to be an edgelord. There's always this sort of, oh, he's not really bothering me. He's just trying to be edgy, and it's so pathetic. But that they're actually bothered. That they are. And if I were them, I would be too. And I don't know how I would feel if I were ethnically Jewish. I don't know I don't know. I think I would still admire the guy for for his guts. I honestly do. I mean, I admire that. I admire the provocateurs. I admire people with guts who say the things that you're not supposed to say. And the song Heil Hitler, again, it goes way beyond anything. It goes way beyond anything that Eminem ever did. So we have the incarnation of the same sort of spirit of rebellion against proper speech, the same sort of rebellion against proper ideology, manifesting, but in a much more radical form. But maybe that's apposite, because things are now, things have gone so far. I mean, what political correctness was in the late 90s, is nothing compared to what it became in the 10s and 20s. And so since they've gone farther in that direction, of course the reaction is going to be stronger. So what do you really expect, liberals? You have you flaunt things like Drag Queen Story Hour, and you're going to get Heil Hitler. You're going to get songs like Heil Hitler in response, and you're going to get people like Trump elected. So enjoy it. This is your meal. This is you made your bed. Now you have to lie in it.